The mission of the IPC is very simple: promote nuclear power preparedness through agency coordination and integration of emergency plans. Now, we're not promoting nuclear power per se, we're promoting preparedness to make sure that we can deal with anything that may arise from an incident at the plant, although I have to say personally that I believe that we do a very good job of that, and I'm not overly concerned about an incident at the plant. They work very hard to keep things safe, but that, that's just my personal opinion.
So if you're concerned about songs and you want the city of Encinitas to send a letter expressing concern about safety, can you please raise your hand for me? All right, that's very good, thank you. Now, if you're here on this item 6, and it's because you want the city to send a letter that says, we love nuclear power at San Onofre, would you please raise your hand for me? All right, we got one. So, case for medicine.
Thank you, Mayor Stocks. I'm Vaughn, Muir, Barth, and Gaspar. I'm Don Mosier. I'm a council member of the City of Del Mar. I'm also a scientist with MD in training in radiation safety and biology. I want to make 3 points quickly. Del Mar City Council has heard this item on 2 occasions. We had an extensive report on Monday night and adopted the following resolution. The City of Del Mar urges the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to require that Southern California Edison undergo a public, transparent, license amendment hearing regarding the replacement steam generators before SONGS is allowed to restart. And secondly, it was resolved that the City of Del Mar strongly supports the California Public Utilities Commission in expeditiously completing an order initiating an investigation recording the cost and reliability of SONGS. We're currently paying $64 million a month as ratepayers for no power generation, and that it compare the reliability and cost of San Onofre facility to a future based on alternatives, including efficiency, load management, demand response, renewable energy, and energy storage. That was the resolution. The second point I want to make is that Southern California Edison is proposing to restart the plant with Unit 2 at reduced power operation. But Unit 3 is being shut down. Both steam generators have identical design, have similar problems, and one of the reasons for requiring a full, transparent investigation is that if Unit 3 failed and it has to be shut down, there's no reason to expect that Unit 2 won't suffer the same fate. This is a major safety issue for all of Southern California, and we want a full, transparent public process so we understand any decision that's made. Point number 3 is a safety issue from my personal experience. All the NRC rules on radiation exposure are based on data from 1960 to 1970. Since that time, we now appreciate that radiation dose is much lower, cause significant harm to public health. And those rules that the NRC is enforcing are totally outdated. I'd like to turn this time over to the other speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. I'm Carol John Cowan. I'm a resident of Encinitas. My family's lived here for many, many years. And the problem I'm having right now with the process that we're in is that we had almost 30 minutes from emergency planning folks, and all we really heard about was emergency planning. The reason there are so many people here tonight is because there are many, many, many issues related to San Onofre. There is not just one concern over whether we have an adequate emergency plan. We could sit here for another 30 minutes and deconstruct what's been said tonight and bring up issues. I mean, what we've heard is predicated on a perfect day, no traffic, no earthquake, no other kind of emergency that requires our responders to be doing other things. You know, we don't know that all of these people who are in these positions of control are going to even be able to get to their emergency centers. So it's just predicated on a perfect day, but as we know, life isn't about having a perfect day every day. So that's just one point about it. My hope is that even with all these people standing here, we're not going to be able to have a full public hearing on the real issues concerning San Onofre. We're getting a little snippet of it. I hope that you will pass this letter. I think it is very important to reflect that our community is being protected and looked out for by our city council members, and I urge you to please pass this letter. All we're asking for is more information, for full disclosure, for transparency. If the NRC would hold an adjudicatory hearing, people would be under oath, expert witnesses from all sides and positions would be able to come in and testify, and we would get a real picture of what we're facing. So please support calling for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Kathy Iwane, and I came from Japan in April of this year, and I'm now living in Solana Beach. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. After 25 years in Japan, I evacuated with my daughters due to the meltdowns of 2011. We lived with a Geiger counter for a year, measuring every day foodstuffs and contamination in our ambient atmosphere. Last August, we measured my favorite local sashimi, skipjack tuna, to be highly radioactive. Mind you, our prefecture, Wakayama, is 380 miles southwest of the reactors. We're not talking about a 10-mile radius or a 50-mile radius here. And yet last October, a city councilman's soils test revealed radioactive contamination in the soil to be 5 times pre-Fukushima levels. So while we sit here, while we meet, 1 in 3 children in the outside of the no-go zone are being diagnosed with irregularities of the thyroid gland, tumors, etc. This is happening outside of the area. Before the disaster, anything measuring over 100 becquerels of cesium, radioactive cesium, was considered radioactive waste. Shockingly, in April of this year, we have the government telling us, no, similar measurements in food are safe to eat. This is what happens when food gets contaminated. Please don't for a moment think that this is just human error on the part of the Japanese engineers and staff. No one in their right mind ever dreamed of a 9.0 magnitude earthquake causing a tsunami, 48-foot tsunami, to go over the wall near the reactors, thereby, screwing up the generating systems and, starting a meltdown. I can't stress enough the devastation of leaving your roots behind after 25 years, your friends, your family, just to protect your children. And this is a part of the emotional. Communities are, screwed up. It's just really bad. This is not just Japan. This could very well be San Onofre. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. I'm sorry I didn't go through that.
My name is Torgan Johnson, Solana Beach. I hold 2 graduate degrees from Harvard in planning. I've never seen anything like this, either the public process here today and the disregard for public safety. But I want to say that I can shred this man's presentation today based on one false assumption, and it's the speed and the scale of a radioactive plume, and that's the lesson from Fukushima. That was stated by Victor Galinsky. He's a 2-time NRC commissioner. He said the thing that we've overlooked in this disaster is the scale. 1,000 square kilometers of highly radioactive land in Japan has been abandoned. It's an exclusion zone. That could happen to Encinitas. That could happen to anywhere. The Prime Minister of Japan, Naoto Kan, during the emergency, had a contingency plan as it was unfolding to evacuate Tokyo, a city of 30 million people, 160 miles away from the power plant, based on his expert's assessment of the unfolding disaster. Luckily, the wind blew offshore. Okay, we have 4 times the Chernobyl's disaster's worth of cesium-137 in spent fuel pools 200 yards from the I-5 freeway, less than 30 miles from you sitting in this room right now. And I want to say that plan that he just told you endangers all of us, and this needs serious consideration. I ask that you put in your letter that this receive a full adjudicatory hearing, an evidentiary hearing, and it goes to a full license, thorough license amendment before considering restarting either reactor 2 or reactor 3 at San Onofre. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Gene Stone from Residents Organized for a Safe Environment. I wasn't really concerned about the emergency planning because we all know during an earthquake or even a power outage, you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything. And so we know that it's not going to work. But I wasn't worried about them having it planned because I'm sure they planned it and read it 1,000 times. But after hearing his presentation, I was extremely worried because I thought I was listening to TEPCO, who said the very same things, and the local governments there couldn't happen here. How can someone be in charge of safety and evacuation who doesn't think it's going to happen? He needs to be prepared for it to happen. He has to want to save our communities. And I didn't hear that in him. I'm sorry. I'm sure he's a great fellow and a great human being. But I don't want to put my safety in his hands after hearing him speak today. So, and I regret that, but that is the way it is. I just came from a meeting with Chairman McFarland on Saturday in Washington, D.C. I wanted to convey to you that the people that work for her that coordinates her meetings will be at the NRC meeting in October 9th in Dana Point. I know for a fact, having spent an hour and 22 minutes with her discussing various topics, that she's very interested in meeting with local governments and local groups.
We thank you for your comments and for your information. All right, at this time, I'll ask you to start off. Go up, state your name, and let us know whether you support Encinitas sending a letter of concern.
I'm Kelly from Encinitas.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi, my name's Simon, and I'm very concerned about this thing.
Awesome, Simon. Thank you.
I'm Dr. Sue Arrigo, occupational medicine, hazardous waste product. I'm very concerned. I want all the radiation of San Onofre moved immediately, not after hearings happen.
Thank you. Come on, step on up, please.
I'm Nancy Nolan, and I agree with Torgan and this gentleman here to add additional language to your letter. Thank you for your time and your letter.
Thank you. You guys are doing great, by the way.
My name is Crystal Coleman. I support Encinitas sending a letter of concern. I've lived here my whole life, and one of the things I wanted to address that I was listening to the man say is that there was materials that are sent home, periodically to notify the public. And I've been in the school system my entire life. I've lived here my whole life, 33 years. I've never seen one thing about nuclear radiation in my schools, in my children's schools. I had no idea about any kind of evacuation plan until just recently, and I think that it's sadly inadequate. And I expect more protection from my leaders and my government to make sure that our children aren't in danger.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gary Hedrick. I'm from San Clemente and represent a group called San Clemente Green of over 1,700 people. And I support your letter. I think it's a great letter. I think it needs to include the license amendment because that is the process that was skipped, and that is the reason that we have this problem today. And if we don't go through that process, we will continue to put the public at risk. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Grace Fontillo. Thank you very much for your letter. I would make it stronger also, because the only way that the city of Encinitas can actually carry out its safety mandate is to make sure that Edison and the NRC get to the root cause of all of these issues, and that the CPUC let us all know what the cost for mitigation and what the actual mitigation of these issues will be. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome, sir.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Steinmetz. I'm currently a resident of San Clemente. I'm also a former graduate of San Diego High School. I would hope that you guys make that letter much stronger. It desperately needs more work, because what these guys are telling you and what Southern California Edison tries to tell the public is simply inaccurate. If they were ever made to swear an oath, they would lose, but they're never made to do that.
Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Beth Ann Chambers, and I left some information with the city clerk, additional information that I've written, and one of them includes a letter I wrote to Governor Brown recently. My husband worked at San Onofre for 27 years, from 1983 till 2010, and he was a licensed nuclear reactor operator, and he was retaliated for raising safety concerns. He witnessed key managers committing violations. He followed protocol. He reported this to his supervisor. She did nothing. He then went in frustration to the NRC, but the NRC did nothing either, because there's a whole lot of areas of plant operation that the NRC doesn't involve itself. And so basically nothing was done. And when you have a nuclear organization where there are key people who are willing to lie, willing to falsify documentation, willing to...
So do you think we should send a letter of concern?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Thanks.
Good evening, my name is Roger Johnson. I'd like a stronger letter also. I must say that I'm surprised you allowed 30 minutes to present the Edison point of view. Edison is the main member of the IPC. They produce documents like this, distributed to all school kids, printed, published, paid for by Edison without acknowledgement. Goes all over the county. You have it on your websites in this town. Edison information, a lot of it is completely erroneous. I think it'd be nice to have, I can't think of any other issue that's more important than this one. And I think you should maybe allot some time in a future meeting where people can make their views known.
You want us to beef up that letter?
Yes, please, a lot.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Randy Ziegler. I want you to beef up the letter too.
Okay.
On behalf of the 7th generation and my genetic DNA inheritance. Thank you.
Thank you. Guys looking out for the future. I like that.
My name is Joey Kincaid Peringer. My husband and I used to live here in Encinitas, but we could only afford to buy a home in Oceanside. So that's why we live there now. We love Encinitas, and I strongly support you sending the letter, beefing it up, because I think these people need to be undervoted. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, sir.
Hi, my name is Scott Peringer. I would like to thank the council for your letter. It's a great concern of ours. Like my wife had mentioned, we used to live here. We're in Oceanside now, but we're deeply concerned about our children and our grandchildren's future. And if something isn't done here, there's going to be a mess that's going to take thousands of years to straighten out.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bart Ziegler, and I'm a resident of Solana Beach. I'm a doctor of community environmental medicine, and after speaking with Sue and Roger, also professors, and discussions with Daniel Hirsch and Arnie Gunderson, as well as essentially a refugee from Japan, I enjoyed humor because it really levitates the situation and moves people faster through lines. But if you look at what happened in Fukushima, it probably wouldn't be a laughing matter because of property values that a lot of people are concerned about. My concern as a health person is more the adverse health effects of radiation, and I think that property values are one thing, but the health care is of concern that I think we now know that the government and the industry doesn't necessarily care about as much as the room here.
Thank you, Doctor.
I'm Donna Gilmore. I live in San Clemente. A lot of the neighbors work at the plant, so we hear firsthand from the employees as opposed to the formal presentations. Again, I'm in contact. I support your letter, and I hope there will be another letter with a lot more urgency, with what I know about the risks, and I know about the problems with the steam generators being the worst in the nation. Safety record the worst in the nation, the retaliation rate worst in the nation, sitting on a potential 8.0 earthquake when it's designed for a 7.0, and Edison plan to restart those steam generators soon. there needs to be a sense of urgency to make sure that those steam generators do not restart, or we seriously could be Fukushima USA here. And I've only been involved in this kind of stuff just when I found out about it recently, so I'm not, this is not an alarmist. This is, and I have facts on sanonofresafety.org website if you would like more information. Thank you.
Appreciate your input. Thank you.
Thank you for having us here tonight. And I'm Susan Wilhoit. I'm a property owner in Cardiff by the Sea since 1977, and I support the letter that you've drafted up, but I also want it stronger. I want that mention of that meeting where everybody's under oath, where you can have a complete investigation and invisible, so we can have transparency.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. I see staff taking notes.
My name is Madge Torres, and I'm a property owner here in Encinitas. I'd like any of you city council members who are truly concerned about what could potentially harm our children and our grandchildren here because of a disaster that could occur at San Onofre, to personally write a letter to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and identify yourselves as a city council member and take responsibility as we all do when we find something that's serious, and send a personal note.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Martha Sullivan. I worked for the State Public Utilities Commission for 20 years. A third of that was as the manager of their environmental assessment program, in which we reviewed the major utility infrastructure projects proposed, and we monitored their construction and operation. A big part of that process was risk assessment. I want to just say to you two things. One, the CPUC is going to have a very rigorous adjudicatory process about the cost of having San Onofre shut down and of potentially restarting it. We want to encourage them to start that as soon as possible and not wait until they absolutely have to under state law, which could be in late November or December. Secondly, I have to say that as somebody who has spent a good part of my professional life doing risk assessment, hearing from our county Office of Emergency Services that there's no public input into that interjurisdictional team. It meets, on its own. There's, an update maybe every 4 years that the Board of Supervisors reviews and approves. And there has been no update since Fukushima.
And
so in over a year and a half.
Do you want us to send the letter or not? Come on.
I think it's probably pretty clear that I want you to send the letter. I'm trying to give you and your staff who's taking notes some additional information to include in that letter. Because I agree that it needs to be stronger and it needs to be more specific. And I think you should benefit from the wide range of experience that's in this room.
Thank you.
Mayor, City Council members, thank you for your time. My name is Swadina Hurt, and I've been a resident of La Costa for almost 30 years. I'm a UCLA-trained biochemist, and I have worked at the UCSD Cancer Center. I'm here tonight because I wanted to let you know that in 1980, 30 years ago, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission itself, that is the nuclear industry's regulatory body, regulating body, they did a study and they wrote a report. It's called the Draft Environmental Input Statement. It was released by the Union of Concerned Scientists, and it showed that a nuclear meltdown at San Onofre would result in 130,000 immediate deaths, 300,000 casualties from cancer, and 600,000 genetic defects. That's a total of over 1 million people affected. That was 30 years ago. In the meantime, we've had a population explosion, and in the meantime, we have found out that cancer is caused much more frequently than we ever thought, 3 times more. I don't know if you can actually multiply 1 million to get by 3 and by 1.5 to get 4.6 million. This is a report done by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission itself. We're talking about possibly 4.6 million people within a 50-mile radius, which is what we want as a minimum evacuation zone. There are 8.4 million people. Even 1 million out of 8.4 million people as casualties is way too high. Please take this seriously. Send a letter and add the addition that Gary Hedrick, Torgan Johnson, and Mayor Don have asked for. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ace Hoffman from Carlsbad. Thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly. I wrote a book in 2008 about nuclear power. I've been studying it for 40 years. What this man has been telling you is not going to work. The area cannot be evacuated. And we went up to Temecula a couple months ago to talk to the emergency planners, the Riverside, the top people in Riverside. And what they kept telling us was confusion, confusion, confusion. And every time we tried to talk about San Onofre, they said, we're not experts in that. We can't possibly tell you anything about it. You got to talk to the experts. Well, that's the expert there. And he's telling you it's all going to work out. It's not going to work out. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity, and worry about that spent fuel, too.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Ray Lutz with Citizens Oversight, and thank you for letting me speak again, even though I kind of probably irritated you before. Just a few new things that you haven't heard. This recent release that occurred, just prior to it happening in the Orange County Register, they were talking about how the steam generators, it says here, the new generators raise the amount of steam energy produced by the reactors, 31,000 homes worth of additional energy that they were planning to get out of the plant. They also published this in the Nuclear Engineering International Journal about how good their steam generators were. And they said here at SONGS, the premise of this project was to avoid NRC approval. They wanted to work around NRC approval. So they had all these many, many changes that they made. And at the end of this, they said, we're not even sure if it's unknown if the designed new replacement steam generators will work. They didn't know if they would work. In fact, both of these have about the same number of failures, up in the thousands of tubes that have failed. So when they say they want to restart 2, it's just about like 3. They will say that this is a thing that was good because nuclear energy can go on forever. We're already running out of fuel. It is not a renewable energy source. It isn't green. The nuclear cycle is a high carbon and extremely polluting all the way through it. When they say it's green energy or it's low carbon footprint, that's not true either. Do we need it? Not really. They're installing this new power system in Arizona, which is a huge smokestack, basically, a big pipe, and with a big piece of plastic. And this is a solar plant, and 5 of these will replace the reactor. So do we need it? No, we don't. So please listen to the public here, and I would encourage you, this is one thing that Citizens Oversight tries to do, encourage the public to be involved. When you shortcut the involvement of the public and you denigrate their involvement and make it as small as possible while running other things such as celebrations and acknowledgments and so forth over, then you're not acknowledging the input of the public, which is huge for this. There's a lot of concern here. So please think about safety. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not going to send him on the bubble, but I think I'm going to go ahead and put him down in the send a letter category. We're going to send a modified beefed up letter. There it is.
Motion carries unanimously.